sure that employees.
Good morning and welcome to this week's Jump discussion. This week we're going to talk about increasing your capacity to deliver and your capability to win more clients. And this week's we're joined by one of Jump's partners, Capture Outsourcing, who's co-founded and run by Drew Francis and 4 other people, including Dominic Coyne, who's actually with us today. So I'll introduce Dominic in a minute. Yesterday, I was writing an article for one of the global recruitment publications called Staffing Hub, and I was digging out some facts. And these facts will help with what we're going to talk about today. So the UK recruitment market, as we know in the UK, is worth around about £43 billion. However, the global market in 2023 was worth $761 billion, of which 62% is the temp market, 21% is managed services, and the rest is perm and other recruitment services. And that included outsourcing. In 2019, the global outsourcing market was worth £92 billion. And it's expected to have a compound growth of 9.1% between 2022 and 30. So the question is, from a recruitment point of view, are we missing a trick? In the States alone, last year, 300,000 jobs were outsourced to outsourced providers. That includes IT services, financial services, and one of the biggest growing areas is outsourcing resourcing of staff. And that's now being closely followed by outsourcing your business development. So the question is, are we missing a trick? Because sometimes the UK SME market take time to embrace certain things, and considering I hear constantly from clients we haven't got the time to do consistent business development, it's very ad hoc in our performance, it's inconsistent, etc. We need to look at it. So today, that's what we're going to look at: increasing your capability to deliver and your capacity to win more clients. And in this case, we're talking about increasing your capacity to deliver by talking about delivering to new clients, driving them into your portfolio, increasing your capability to grow and scale. So welcome, Dominic. Thank you for joining us. Dom's got 24 years in recruitment experience. So that's what 24 years looks like. Heather, this is what 30 years looks like, as well you know.
Neither of you look old enough. I don't
He started in the year 2000, in the S3 group. We won't boo, but we will talk about the S3 group. He then joined a construction recruitment agency in 2007, which he's now the director of, Build Space, which is where he's talking from today. But alongside Drew Francis, another sponsor of Jump, in 2022, his business needed to fill a gap. So him and 4 other people co-founded Capture Outsourcing, which was set up initially to aid recruitment agencies with outsourcing resource, but has now grown an outsourcing business development capabilities. And that's what we're going to talk about today: business development capabilities. So usually, as always, Heather's here. Dave, I think, is on client side. Paul, I know, is on client side. So Dom, before I ask the first question, is there anything you want to add to your introduction, or anything you want to talk to us about before we go into the big subject?
Very, very kind words there, Howard. So thank you so much for that intro. The 24 years, I'm not too keen to hear. It has been a long time, but I've definitely got some understanding of the recruitment industry, starting in tech, and then more recently, it's been some time now, but moving into construction, and then in the.
Is it because it was Dom?
Dom has frozen. Yeah,
Dom has frozen. So that's always a good start for a question, because we're going to be driving into that question. Sorry. You're back, Dom. You're back. You froze there. Tell the rest of your staff to get off the Wi-Fi or pay your Wi-Fi bill. One of the things needs to happen.
So basically, I don't know where we got to, but my background was in tech with the aforementioned S3 group, and then also a business that I was a director of in Europe. And then I got into construction some time ago, many moons ago now. In the last couple of years, myself and a couple of my cronies saw a gap in the market for offshoring, having used some sort of outsourced support into our businesses over a period of time, and that was how our sort of second business, Capture, was born. And I guess that's brought me in today.
So let's kick off then, and let's sort of push into this subject, because I think it's quite a big subject, and it's something that I think we can talk all day about. So what are the key advantages of outsourcing business development offshore compared to keeping it in-house or utilizing an onshore outsourcing option?
Well, I think everyone gets interested in offshoring and outsourcing primarily because of cost. If you take things offshore, then you are definitely going to see a cost reduction. I can only speak for our model, but I've looked into others as well. And you're definitely going to be at half price in terms of cost. So that's the big headline thing, and that's why it piques people's interest from the outset. It offers a flexibility, I guess, as well. So, Heather's here today. She can tell you all about employment law, and she can also tell you about employment costs as well. I'm sure associated costs with that. That is obviously something that you can dodge by going down the offshore outsource sort of model. And obviously you can scale quickly. So, there is opportunity in the marketplace. We all know that. I think the struggle is real when it comes to bringing on UK staff, both in a delivery sense, but also in a BD sense. Finding really good salespeople now in what is a competitive market is hard going. So, we looked at that ourselves personally for our own businesses to sort of complement our existing teams with some offshore salespeople that had success with it, which is how we sort of developed things on our side. You can turn it on, you can turn it off. So it's a bit easier to turn off an offshore thing than it is a UK onshore sort of business development person. And you can go after projects a bit more easily. So, if I can only speak for construction, say, but if you've got something like HS2 coming online and you need to ramp up quickly and get really into that detail, then you can bring in people offshore way quicker than you can perhaps in the UK, and that can help you to go after things. So for us, there are multiple advantages to offshore solutions.
Heather, you've obviously, through your time at Engage, you also engaged in quite a number of offshore, companies to do various different parts of Engage's work. Did you offshore any part of business development or the business processes? And if you did, what did they bring to Engage?
So we did a lot of offshoring. So we did back office offshoring first. So we did finance, payroll, billing, HR. Actually, had my HR team offshore, and we also did some of the sales functions. So we did resourcing and we did some business development as well. And really, we did it for the reasons that Dom's talking about. It was about cost. It was about the ability to scale quickly. It was about the ability to switch it on and off when we needed to move some of that responsibility for managing the human resources to somebody else, which was really, really helpful. And actually, the process of moving the activity offshore gave us an opportunity to really examine in detail what we were doing, why we were doing it, how the best way was for us to do it. So it was almost like a business process reinvention when we did it. Because we were really looking at, okay, do we really need to do this? Is there a better way of doing it? Can we be more efficient about it? It wasn't just about having the resources somewhere else, but actually we looked at the whole business process as part of it. And since Engage, I've done that with a couple of much smaller businesses as well. So this doesn't just apply to big organizations at all.
I was going to say, so I'm going to steal your comment there, business process reinvention, because I think that's a great way of putting it, that it gives you an opportunity to evaluate your current processes and then reinvent them.
Yeah. And that was a huge benefit for us at Engage. Huge. We'd done things the same way for so long without ever stopping and going, is there a better way to do this?
So that favourite phrase I hear constantly is, why are you doing that? Because we've always done it that way.
Yeah. And the bigger the organisation, the more of that you get, right?
Yeah. I mean, from our point of view, I think we were very guilty of that as well. That's the way we've been brought up. I think certain recruiters of a certain age, look back on the good old days and say that's the way it worked then and that's the way it is now. And it's hard to change. I think COVID had a large part to play in this. The idea of people not being in the office, I was always brought up on the fact that we're first in, last out, and we work like crackers in between. And the idea of working from home was a non-starter. COVID sort of changed that, and it went completely. And so the idea of having to manage people remotely became a thing. And I think that's opened our eyes to offshoring. And when, you know, other people went first, we were not first to it by any stretch. But if people said to us, why don't you have a little look to see if you can take some of your functions in the business offshore to make life easier for you, make life cheaper for you, then that's when we started to look at it and started to look at the different functions, and we've grown that and sort of changed with it.
One of the things I hear obviously is about communication when you offshore things, because obviously they're not in the country, they're not in your office, etc. So how do offshore outsourcing services typically handle communication and collaborate to ensure alignment with your goals and your end clients' goals and objectives?
Well, here, I mean, the offshore guys are as much as part of the team as the guys in the office. So, you know, if let's talk about build space, and then just because we can, but they know the build space way. They talk the build space lyrics. They're involved in every one of our team meetings. You know, we work in, I don't know, like most people, most businesses, we work in sprints. So we work at blocks of time through the day. So we start them off with a quick pep talk before the start of sprint, and we do a roundup at the end, and we go again. They're involved in all of our we have gamification within the office, so people are doing battles and working against each other. They're involved in all of those. In terms of, you know, the business development stuff that they are doing, they use our marketing material, and will be involved in all of the live client meetings. And if there's some account management going on, they'll be managing that in the build space way. So the lines of communication are wide open, and they really are just an extension of our business. And that really is the key to the success of it all, is making sure that person is a true member of the team, and that the line of communication is very, very strong.
So, as you know, we also work with another offshoring partner, Joe Jahal, and
Yes.
you know, they talk very much about resourcing. So, can you give us examples then of providing offshore business development outsourcing projects, including measurable outcomes or key performance indicators, and how you achieve that? Because I think that's the bit that really is the crux of this. You know, offshoring business development is a real panic for lots of people. They've got over that panic of maybe offshoring their resource, but offshoring their business development is a big step for lots of people.
Absolutely that. And listen, it doesn't happen overnight. So you know, like most people, when they consider offshoring for the first time, and bringing people into the business, the best way for people to get up to speed, if you spot someone and you have a business development direction in mind, they come on board to learn the in this case the build space way, or whoever it may be. And they get to understand the business and the market in which they're going to work, the niche. They work with the team. They will work on live roles at first to get up to speed with things. They'll start to understand their technical market bit by bit. We then get them involved in account management. So we will start to introduce into the client world. They will get to work on what we call house accounts. And so they will get to manage an end-to-end process with the client, developing their skills in terms of the business development. And once they've got to a stage, and they will have also put some runs on the board themselves in terms of some deals along the way, we will get them to do their own business development from there. So over a period of 2 or 3 months, we've got somebody who's really understands our business, understands the market we work in, understands our solution and the way we work, and then they're ready to go and to get involved in that business development. A case in point, we've had a big project here land recently, which is, you know, multiple perm hires in a sort of mid management sort of level, and it's up to 50 hires in a period of time. And we had to scale. We had to scale quickly to manage that, and we had to introduce some of our offshore South African guys into the fold pretty quickly. And we've set them. We are data led here, So we've got an ops manager in-house who sort of tells us what good looks like in terms of activities and how to manage things through. But the guys knew that from the outset, and then they were booked in with line managers and hiring managers on a weekly basis to talk through their weekly performance, to talk through their dashboard of activity, where they've got to in terms of candidates generated, and talking that resource aspect through. But it was account management, so it was a business development thing as well, and it's opened up more business. So they work to KPIs, they work to targets, they're looking at developing and expanding new existing accounts, and then on the back of that they'll go off and go into the big bad world and open up new business from scratch.
So I'm sure Heather will agree with this. This is very much about how we would embed someone, or how we should be embedding someone in the UK if you employed that person, full stop. I mean, I've always preached that, you should be teaching them the candidate market first and foremost, so they understand the market, and then they start to develop their client edge by having data and information about what the local market is and what the data for the local and the national market is, and would move from there. So what you're saying is that you train the people. It's not an instant nirvana. They have to come on board. They have to be trained by the company. They have to be led by the company. But often from a cost process, it's a lot cheaper to do it in this fashion. But they still have to. And I think we discussed before the webinar. If you need to know the Wakefield market,
yes,
in South Africa, you may be struggling to know where Wakefield is, let alone know the markets like that. So having that first 3 months understanding what's going on, the first couple of months understanding what's actually happening in the market by spending your time in the candidate market is very important to that. And it's interesting that Joe's also come on the Jojo Hal's come on the actual chat, and he said he's noticed also a big increase in the demand for outsourcing BD, and that's probably fueled by the savings for organisations, but it's also because a lot of people stopped selling through COVID because they thought there was so much work out there they didn't have to sell, and we're seeing that. Is that something that you're seeing as well, that through COVID it drove this demand once the market started to dip a little bit and people had stopped doing BD?
Yeah, absolutely. That. So we the sort of offshore and the outsourcing side sort of interest on our side came primarily we were looking for extra firepower, extra muscle with delivery. However, the market turned a little, and we were then starting to look for new opportunity and looking to expand our client base. So it naturally we developed delivery guys and took them into a BD role. Once we'd mastered that, once we got our training right, once we got people up to speed, we were able to start with go after people with a focus on BD. And so we've what was perhaps 6 or 9 months in the past, because they've come through a delivery model, we've been able to sort of work on, and we're bringing these people on with a pure focus on BD now, and they just go through a shorter training program and off they go.
So if you look at then strategies, what strategies do offshore sort of providers employ to mitigate the potential risk of cultural difference, obviously time zone disparities, but language barriers? And it's quite interesting. I remember sort of going to Australia, and myself and a lad from Newcastle was sat in a pub and chatting away and talking away, and these 3 Australian guys that we were with turned around and looked at us and said, "We've been listening to you for the last hour. We haven't understood a word you've said." even though we were speaking English. So looking at that, so give us examples of how you would mitigate that potential risk of cultural difference, time zone disparities, and language barriers disparity. How do you get over that?
Well, we offshoring, where we're at the moment is Cape Town. So that lends itself pretty well to the UK market. It's currently 2 hours ahead of us, but point in the year it goes down to an hour. So the time zone's not too bad. Most people, we start working about 8ish, so it's 10 o'clock over there, so it's not so bad for them. So the time zone thing, that's fine. We have used India. Our first foray into the sort of offshore thing was India, and that worked. It worked to a degree, but we found that it was better off sort of back office side of things. And when it came to the
I think he's got the Dave's problem, hasn't he, Heather? The way he hasn't paid his
his
mouse enough to run fast enough on that treadmill to get his Wi-Fi working.
Back. Am I back?
You are
You're back,
now.
yeah.
Oh, I do apologise. So I do apologise. So I don't know where we got to there, but in terms of our foray into offshore, we started with India first, and that was largely it was good for the back office and sort of administrative side of the job. But for a frontline candidate and client sort of management, it didn't quite work as we'd like it to. We then tried Eastern Europe. And again, there were a few problems with the accent and in terms of the communication thing. So we found that in South Africa, the spoken English is very good, and the written work is excellent too. So for us, the actual the language thing that happens with international and offshore stuff is probably at its best in South Africa. And then in terms of the cultural side of things, well, you know, we've got boys, we've got girls, we've got different religions, we've got all sorts going on, and that's the same as it is in London. But in terms of the cultural divide between South Africa and the UK, as soon as we embed these guys in our team and get them involved in the team atmosphere and culture, it works a treat straight away. So I mean, the bands we've got WhatsApp groups, and we've got Teams things going on all the time, and they're given as good as they can get in terms of the banter and stuff. So yeah, the cultural thing hasn't been an issue in any way, shape, or form.
So you're back to what we said originally at the beginning of the conversation, and I remember sort of Joe was on a webinar a lot earlier, that embedding people into your business and embedding into your culture is paramount of importance to actually get the success of the projects off the ground and get their own return and mitigate any potential risk.
Absolutely that. So you know, it's not an off the peg instant win. You know, absolutely not. You really do have to train in the same way as you would do a UK recruit or hire, and probably more so. You know, I personally learn, and I guess most of the guys here would learn in the same way. You pick up and listen to the people around you, and obviously you can't do that as much if you are remote. Obviously, the guys will be involved. We can do things over camera and listening to calls and all that kind of stuff. So we can do that. But you know, I still remember the top salesman in the corner of the room, and I wanted to be him. I picked up all his little tricks and developed those myself. So there is that. But the time that you do put in, you will certainly get back if you manage it properly. And it's just being consistent with that.
Okay. So how do offshore outsourcing costs compare to in-house businesses, especially development expenses on offshore and outshore? It sort of alternates sometimes. So what factors should a business consider when evaluating cost-effective offshore outsourcing?
Okay, so in terms of financial targets, our guys are delivery and BD consultants. We've got a bit of both here. They're targeted in the same way as the UK. So you know, in terms of return on investment, they're monitored and targeted in exactly the same way. So their targets will be the same as UK targets. In terms of cost, well, there is a massive cost saving to be had, and that's in basic salary. There's a big cost saving there, and also in commission as well. So we pay strong commissions for that local market, but compared to the super competitive UK market, it's quite a big saving there. We have a training academy that Capture sets up, and Capture puts those guys through that as part of the expense and as part of the service. So that doesn't knock on to somebody who's hiring an offshore solution as such, but they will put them through their own training academy. You know, so you've got whatever company may have, you'll have your own internal training and processes and all that kind of stuff. So there's no additional cost there either. In terms of hardware, you can or cannot provide the hardware needed, so PCs and laptops and all that kind of stuff that can be provided also. So there's a modest cost there. So yeah, cost saving is dramatic, and I think that's why more people are looking at the offshore solution.
So I'm assuming from a cost point of view, then you'd still have to supply them with a CRM and all their capabilities to actually access the marketplace.
Correct.
You know, we talk about that development expense with regards to, you know, the cost of offshore to onshore. But when you start to look at those offshore people, obviously a lot of the big cost is that development of their knowledge of the marketplace. So
Yeah.
other than them talking to the candidates, how do you start to develop their knowledge and ensure that their knowledge is up to scratch? Because, you know, that's certainly one of the questions that I get asked an awful lot, that people are worried about that knowledge or lack of knowledge and how that makes the company look.
Yeah, I get that. So the way we've done it here, and I can only speak from experience, is a sort of buddy system. So we haven't done a completely cold market. So we haven't had one of our capture consultants go and open a new market from scratch within the construction space. But they've certainly developed an existing market that we're in terms of new clients.
He'll be back in a minute. I'm absolutely sure he'll pop back in. Apologies for that, but I do think what Dom's saying is really important. It really is about how much time you invest in developing these people in exactly the same way as you would somebody who was in your office. So, you know, building their knowledge and their skills is a cost, but that's how you become effective, right? You have to invest the time in upskilling them, helping them to understand local markets. I saw an amazing example in a medical business where they picked one city that had 3 hospitals, and they had a team of people in an outsourced outfit who only worked on servicing for those 3 hospitals. But there was enough work medically in those 3 hospitals to justify a huge team. And those people sat on the other side of the world knew that city. They knew every bus route, every train route, every tram route, every driving route where the tram, so they could talk to candidates about, you know, detail of that local market, because they chose a geographical area that those people could learn. It didn't matter where they were in the world. They learned everything culturally they needed to know about how people would want to go and work in that particular market. So it's about how much you're willing to put into developing these people. Obviously, tech problems are slightly more serious than
might want to
back in a minute.
Might want to outsource that as well. So what we're saying, you know, this is very similar to what, you know, when we had Joe on last year talking about the same thing, and Joe will be on later on this year talking about various different things. What we're saying, it's about the investment in your people, it's the development of the people that you've got, and
100%.
it's, you know, you have to heighten that time in the initial period to get them up to speed on not just the skill set, but the local market, the local culture, the client culture, etc. So I think what you're saying, Dom, not opening a new marketplace that no one's ever worked in, etc. Because even in the UK, you sometimes struggle with that, but creating existing marketplace and building on existing market capital is a very, very easy step to make if you engage in the right processes and engage people in that offshoring marketplace.
Exactly that. And I think also, you know, I'm not saying that we can't. The guys that we've now got up and running in a BD capacity, BD function, have come into a live desk for us at the moment. But I'm not saying now that they've got that level of understanding and they've developed and opened up clients in that space, they could now step out and go into a completely new market with that experience under their belt.
But it's that initial experience. So to sort of push this question a little bit further, and this is the bit that, you know, I think it came in with a massive boom. It sort of died a little death, but everyone's absolutely petrified of it. So if you sort of think about the steps to offshoring providers need to take, i.e. data security, confidentiality, GDPR, compliance, relevant sort of local regulations, etc. How do you deal with sort of sensitive business information, especially when you've got, like you're saying, you're based in either South Africa, you have been based in offshore in India. How do you deal with that information?
again, that was a concern of ours, and also a concern also with some of the clients that we work with. So we looked at this from a tech point of view. Obviously, trying to keep the data secure in the world that we live in today is of paramount importance. So we've set up a virtual sort of desktop infrastructure, a portal, if you will, a VPN kind of style thing that is UK based. The data does not leave the UK. It can be accessed obviously internationally, but it's encrypted and it is secure within that sort of portal, and that's giving our clients a level of security. I noticed one of the questions popped up in the chat there about trust as well. And yes, everyone is on a contract with ourselves, and in that there are obviously some clauses around that trust aspect and confidentiality, so that they are within a contract there that we have with all members of staff as well.
So
yeah, and I don't. Sorry to add to that. I don't think it's any different. The trust issue is not actually different with an outsourced business than it is with your own staff. The risks are the same, and the way you address it is the same. You know, it's about building those really solid relationships backed by good contracts. So contracts between you and the outsourced service provider, good tech solutions, and trust between your members of staff. Yeah,
exactly that.
So that's an interesting question from Mark, though, because obviously it's probably an interesting question that the ever so skeptical recruitment market always has of anything sort of new. You know, bringing people into the business, okay, and if you're saying it's very much the same as you bring a normal person into the recruitment marketplace, obviously we're looking for that instant fix, that instant sort of success with people. How long would you normally give it when you sort of bring somebody into that business, you know, to actually get them up to speed so they start to make a return on investment? Because obviously that first process is reasonably slow, and we understand that when it's our employee, but when we're outsourcing and paying it from an outsourcing, sometimes people expect that to become a little bit quicker. So again, from a contractual point of view, how do you deal with that, and how does that sort of manifest itself, or has it manifested itself in your experience?
I think that is probably why we brought people into the sort of candidate side of things from the outset. So that talking to candidates gives you and it warms you up in terms of technical stuff, in terms of a market, and also the roles and stuff that you're going to be working, and getting a better understanding for some of the companies and clients within that marketplace. But it also gives you a chance to get some sort of runs on the board and to make some placements from a resourcing point of view. It is not a resources role, but it's a good way to learn and to take you on that journey to business development. So you should be getting some return in that training phase in terms of getting some placements away, and then we would like to think that we're getting into a full BD function within 3 months of starting a new hire. So you're going to get a return on investment. You're certainly going to get work on, and it's then about conversion. But you should be getting a return of sorts in the first training period, and then after 3 or 4 months, you should be up and running. Which you're probably thinking the same in the UK.
But what you're saying is then by the archetypal process of getting them to doing candidate generation first, that they should be finding candidates that will be able to be placed into the marketplace, and therefore they are offsetting their return on investment reasonably quickly by developing people from there. Shona has asked, is the webinar going to be available afterwards? Yes, it is. It'll be on our website and it'll be on YouTube, as soon as I can get it onto YouTube and onto our website. So depending on how big my lunch is, so it depends on how it'll be on. But if you drop me an email, Shona, I'll put my email in the chat box there. If you drop me an email, then I'll send Dominic's email address, and I'll send Jojo Hull's email address as well to you. So you've got an introduction to both, so you can sort of have a conversation with both on how this works. But I think it's important to understand that, contractual. Are these people then under South African law, or are they under UK law when it comes to their employment rights? And again, how does that work when they're working offshore?
So in our case at the moment, the way we work, we have an operations manager on the ground in South Africa who's on the payroll, and the guys are self-employed. So they do have all they're self-employed on a contract. So it doesn't in terms of the rights around sickness and all that kind of stuff, we give them sickness right, we give them holiday pay, we give them also health and give some time off and stuff in terms of sickness. But they are self-employed. We do that on a discretionary basis. But the holidays are cast in stone, and in terms of their contracts, they are self-employed.
And that varies from organisation to organisation. That's not unusual in South Africa, Tom, from my experience. That model's not unusual. But generally, from my experience over lots of different outsourcing models, your contract between the UK business and the outsourcing organisation is generally covered by UK law. So that would be a contract between the recruitment business in the UK and the outsourcing provider, wherever it is in the world. You'd have a contract in UK law, and then locally the outsourcer will engage with a locally specific and appropriate contract. So that's going to be different in India, in Eastern Europe, instead based on the local deal. But and as Dom says, the good outsourcers will do things well for their local people, like giving sick pay and holiday pay and managing them well. And when I spent time in India looking at outsourced providers, one of the things that I looked at was how well do they treat the people that work for them, how engaged, how good's their own local HR and local management, because that'll make a difference. And that's something to look at when you're choosing your outsourced provider.
Yeah, I think in the UK, whether people recognise that or not, the holiday allowances and stuff that we have is pretty good in an international sense. The guys in South Africa are absolutely cock a hoop with the holidays and what have you. They're afforded, and so there's a happy camp in that sense.
Yeah. And those things make a difference, right? It's all about how engaged the staff are with the outsourced provider.
Yeah, exactly. And it's discretionary, and some clients do it and don't. But in terms of their perks and initiatives, recruitment companies will go out jollies all the time. They have days out and all that kind of stuff. The guys in South Africa can't benefit from that. But if we go out for dinner, they get vouchers of sorts. And if we're having a night out, they'll get Deliveroo or whatever it is over there. They'll get all that kind of stuff. So they're made to feel a part of the team, and they celebrate team success and individual success for that matter as well.
And are they commissioned and bonused on that as well, or is it just
So the commission, they're all commissioned, and they're paid on a deal by deal basis like everyone else. They get a basic salary, and then they're paid on a transactional basis from one deal to the next. They've got a commission structure, and if the more they build, they go in tiers and stuff like that. They get bonuses on quarters, like the guys will be here in the office. But it's not the same as UK commission. And what I will say is there's a savings out there for sure.
Yeah. So one of the comments that you said there, that I know that a lot of clients will have that little bit fear that they're self-employed at their end, and obviously that's their market and how their market works. Yeah. What happens if these people leave halfway through the contract, or after 3 or 4 months they leave? How does that? Because obviously that means that client's got to step all the way back to the beginning again and restart again. So how does that work, and how do you mitigate against that?
I mean, it happens, right? That's life. So it does happen. I mean, in terms of the guys that we have in our stable, in our camp, we've worked with them through a process of a hiring process here. So we've got a good understanding of that person and their commitment to the job. So that's the first thing. And obviously, our clients in the UK would interview and go through a process like they would anywhere else. In terms of somebody leaving, it's much like the UK. We can do an instant replacement. We've got a bench of people that are available, so that could backfill any immediate gap should you lose somebody for one reason or another. I think in the UK that's pretty much the same. There's a freedom there for people to walk. It's just knowing that you've got backup, that if you've invested the training, that there's somebody else behind them.
The retention is the same the world over, right? Yeah. So my experience with lots and lots of years of dealing with outsourcing is that the turnover is broadly the same everywhere.
Yeah.
And what makes the difference is the way they treat people, not the way they're engaged. It isn't
Exactly.
about whether they're self-employed or not. It's about how deeply embedded they are in the culture of the business they're working for, and how much they feel valued and rewarded. They're the key to how well they feel developed and invested in, and all of those things impact retention in an outsourced situation just as they do in an employed situation. It makes no difference.
But there's a question to be asked here, though, isn't there? Because there are, inverted commas, two employers here, aren't there? They're obviously employed by the outsourced company, and they are then engaged by the recruitment agency. So they almost have two bosses. Does that cause a conflict, especially from a business point of view? Because let's say the person leaves, but they have intimated to the recruitment agency they're leaving because the outsourced company hasn't provided X, Y, Z, or is this Y, etc., etc. Does that cause a problem? And if so, how have you come around that problem to ensure that your employment doesn't affect the employment or the relationship that they have with the end client?
Yeah, no, a good question. So, we have this is just speaking from our setup. So we have our own WhatsApp groups going, and we've got that all of the delivery consultants and business development guys are party to. So they're pinging all of the time, so that we know what people are up to and how they're going. We have a bit of a competition internally about who's doing what. And we've got an operations manager on the ground who's talking to the guys daily in terms of helping them along, answering any issues or queries. But really, that's about it. We deal with issues and with problems, and we're working with our end clients in terms of their satisfaction. But ultimately, the responsibility and the management will come from the end clients until such time as they ask us to get involved. So we are there at all times to help out and support. But it goes back to the point of this being a team member. The end client ultimately is taking this person into their team. So, they would manage them on a day-to-day basis unless they ask for help and support.
So I think we've discussed part of this, but to finish this conversation off, in what ways can offshore outsourcing, certainly BD, contribute to the scaling and flexibility of a business, particularly in adapting to fluctuating demands or experiencing new markets, etc., as we're experiencing now with this fluctuation in demand? So how does offshoring contribute to that scalability and flexibility of a business?
It's the speed. You can see opportunity coming and you can future plan. It's very hard to get a UK guy to come in quickly and to help and bolt onto things. So we've seen loads of, speaking again about build space here, we've seen loads of construction business. We've seen loads of a big spike in data center work over the last 18 months. And we were busy in the team that we have in and around that. We're busy with a number of work in the pharmaceutical and also in distribution center markets, and the team's at full capacity, coping with the work that we had on. So it was the South African guys that have helped us to push into data centers because they've given us that extra firepower quickly, and we've been able to really push into that way quicker than we could have done with the UK team, and then perhaps outside guys in the UK coming on board. We've been able to get people up and running quickly and to get them started quickly, more to the point.
So sort of to top and tail this, what you're saying on one hand, as a business owner from a recruitment agency, you've outsourced your business development and you're finding that business development is now adding to the growth and scalability of your business. It's provided you a flexible opportunity. But what you're saying is then, from this point of view, it's not an instant nirvana. It's not that instant fix. It is like bringing a new person into the business that has to be trained, developed, managed, has to be culturally aligned to your business, and have to have the right values for your business in order for them to actually add benefit to your business. And that doesn't happen overnight. That happens from the start of the recruitment process right through to the end of the process when they're actually starting to work for you. But it's not that instant fix.
Exactly.
as a sort of final sort of question, that recruitment process then becomes really important. How involved is the recruitment agency in the recruitment process of the person that they are going to be working with? Are they involved in that? Do they get involved in that, or is it purely then down to you and your business?
Oh no, it's down to the end. It's down to the hiring agency. So we identify. We've got a talent acquisition guy who works for us full time on the capture payroll, and he's kissing a lot of frogs all the time to find that prince or princess. And then they go through a two-stage director call. So there's 4 directors at capture, and they'll go through a two-stage interview with 2 of the directors, and then we take them into the training academy. They then go through a training academy for a period of 2 or 3 weeks, and then they will either go into Build Space or Primis, which is Ben Broughton, one of the other directors' tech businesses, and they'll do some real-time work there to get up to speed with systems and that kind of stuff. So they've got that aspect of training going through capture. But during that process, we have a client list at the moment. There's people, we've got a list of people looking to bring on offshore guys, and they'll be interviewing all the time. So we've done a filter and then a double filter, and we've got a bench that we think is ready to go of top consultants that have got a really good foundation training and are ready to go to market. And then our clients will just go through an interview process like they would in the UK. So they'll get them to meet the team, they'll meet a director or 2, they might do some role playing, they might do all that kind of stuff. And then it's just a selection process in the usual way. And we encourage that.
Brilliant. Well, anything you want to add to it, Heather, obviously from your experience of offshoring various parts of businesses, etc. Anything that you want to add to what Dom said?
My big add would be, in my experience, working in partnership in a team with your outsourcing provider is the absolute key to success. So work with them, choose a partner that you're comfortable with, choose a partner that shares your values, that understands your values and what you're trying to achieve, and then really build a partnership with them. And it can be phenomenally beneficial to do that, but they should be a partner, and you get out of it what you put in to it.
Exactly that. I think out of sight cannot be out of mind. You've really got to engage and integrate offshore team members into your team. That is the key to success. The closer you are with your remote workers, the very best the best results are going to come, and that's what we've learned ourselves, and we're seeing our other clients who are having great success with it. The ones who are getting the best results have definitely got that relationship going with their staff.
Brilliant. Dominic, it's been enlightening as always to listen to one of our partners talk about how they've built their business, how they've built other parts of the business, and how you've added to the marketplace. I think this is a more to me, this is an area for the last 2 or 3 years has legs. It's now starting to sprint, and I think it's lots of recruitment agencies could benefit from this depending on how they engage with it, and I think it's really useful. So thanks for your input. Thanks for your input from the recruitment side and from the offshoring side. It's been invaluable. Heather, thanks for your input as always. Next week we start a brand new series of recruitment webinars. So this weekend I'll be busily squirreling away writing what those are because I haven't thought about them yet, but I will do. So I'll get them all written up, but we'll be out next week and we'll be back next Wednesday. Dom, thanks for your time. Heather, thanks for your time. Everybody else, thanks for your input, much appreciated, and we'll see you all next week.
Nice one.
Cheers.
Thanks, Take care. Cheers now. Bye-bye.